G'day mates, my name is Mordecai, and welcome to the inaugural episode of this show. Being relatively new to the tabletop role-playing game hobby, I'm interested in learning how to be a good player. At this stage, I am hoping to improve as a player by learning about bad player habits. This episode shall recount the tale of a player who is more interested in using a non-playable character, or NPC, as cannon fodder. Without further ado, let's do a bit of story crunching. This story is titled, Player Wants to Kill a Friendly NPC Without Listening to the Party, and is written by Sir Boops. Hey all, so I'm not really sure if this belongs here, but I thought I'd see what you all thought. I apologise for the long post, it happened the other day and it really frustrated me, so I wanted to vent. For context, I was part of a homebrew one-shot adventure with a few people I know, and a couple I don't. There were 6 of us players in total, and the Dungeon Master. So quite a big cast, but the only person to really be concerned about is our Barbarian. He was the problem player in my opinion. Let's begin. We started our adventure arriving at a town as members of a mercenary guild to help the townsfolk retrieve an artifact stolen by some bandits. Straight away, our Barbarian shows hostility the entire time. Basically just commenting about fighting and killing the entire time. The quest giver had a pet wolf that was pretty much just chilling, not doing anything, and he instantly claimed he is going to watch the wolf closely with his hand on his weapon, despite being told the wolf was basically just sleeping. Off we went on the adventure, and we headed towards some ruins. When we arrived, the party started discussing what to do, and how we should approach, when suddenly the Barbarian just stormed ahead without any caution and entered the ruins. We followed along and entered an empty room with a door. We wanted to check for traps, but the Barbarian just walked up and swung the door open. True enough, the door was trapped, and he barely dodged a battering ram that swung down towards his head. You'd think he'd learn his lesson, but no, he decided to shout through the door at top volume that he was here to kill the bandits. So, there went any chance at being sneaky. He then storms up to the next door, stepping on a tripwire attached to a bell, and without checking for any more traps or for any sounds on the other side, just kicks the door open and enters the room. In the next room, he finally pauses for a moment while we throw a torch inside to light the room up, so some of our players can see. But there are traps everywhere. Using a javelin, the Barbarian triggered a bear trap and broke the javelin in the process. Suddenly, from some scaffolding, there was a voice of a small kobold, who told us to stay back. The Barbarian then proceeded to maneuver past the traps to climb the scaffolding after the kobold, who at this point hadn't attacked and just wanted us to stay back. The kobold jumped down to escape. Notice how the kobold was trying to run and not fight? Well, our Barbarian didn't care, and kept chasing the kobold, so the little guy decided to use a sling and shot a little pebble at the Barbarian to keep him back. This angered the Barbarian, who tried to kill the kobold by grabbing him and throwing him headfirst into a trap. When that failed, the party were trying to convince him to stop so they could talk to the kobold. His response, "The kobold attacked me, and drew blood, and so by the law of..." doesn't really matter what he said, "I have the right to kill him." We were all like, what? He literally acted in self-defense. We found out he was working with the bandits because they promised him shiny things. After some back and forth, we finally convinced the kobolds to help us disarm all the traps and find the artifact. The entire party was trying to convince the Barbarian to let the kobold live, because he was friendly and was just misguided by the bandits. He clearly didn't really know who he was working for. The Barbarian just couldn't let this go though. He insisted that he had some right to kill the kobold. Eventually we managed to calm down the Barbarian. Barbarian then tried to tie some rope around the kobold's neck to, quote, keep him on a short leash, unquote. He failed, and we kept him away from the kobold for a while. We then approached another door, and once again he didn't check for anything and tried to kick it open. Turns out the door was an intelligent mimic that was able to talk to us. Didn't really appreciate being kicked in the face. We convinced the mimic not to eat us by promising to feed it the bandits' bodies if it would let us pass. So off we went to the next door, and went to go down the corridor when the barbarian decided to grab the kobold and drag him down ahead of us, kick open the next room's door, and threw the kobold across the room into a crowd of bandits. Obviously, combat started. Once again, no attempt at subtlety was made, and we couldn't use any stealth. We managed to make a good fight against the bandits, and the kobold ran off down a different corridor. When we killed the bandits, the barbarian chased after the kobold. I'd had enough, and chased him down, and just as he was going to throw a javelin at the little guy, I pinned the barbarian to the wall and told him to stop trying to kill the person who was trying to help. Then the leader of the bandits attacked us. When it came to the barbarian's turn in combat, he said, if I had enough movement, I'd be disengaging so that I could run past the bandits to kill the kobold. The entire party was just done with his vendetta at this point. Then eventually during the fight against the bandit leader, the barbarian was knocked down and on his death saving throws. Fortunately, or unfortunately, our fighter used a health potion to revive him. After the fight, the barbarian went after the kobold again. The entire party was just like, dude, he attacked you in self-defense with a pebble. You threw him through a table. You're even. It legitimately took us about 10 minutes to convince him to stop trying to kill the kobold. It's probably not even as bad as I thought, but it was really annoying that he was just rushing in and not waiting for the party or listening to us. It seriously felt like he didn't want to play as a team. And that is where this story ends. I realize that I am inexperienced. However, I get the distinct impression that the barbarian was possibly equally inexperienced in addition to being a bad player. Having done a tiny bit of research, I can be reasonably sure that the barbarian would fall under the classification of a murder hobo. Murder hobos are players that largely care only about killing and looting, paying no heed for concepts such as teamwork and roleplay. If they engage in roleplay or teamwork, it's usually the further the desire to kill more things. In this case, the barbarian charged in blindly, triggering all of the traps, having no regard for the other players, and wanted to use the kobold as a meat shield. I genuinely feel bad for the kobold. But I will admit that I am genuinely curious as to why the barbarian had such a vendetta against the NPCs in the one-shot. D&D and other role-playing tabletop games are, to my understanding, meant to be cooperative experiences, where players and the Game Master work together. Without teamwork or cohesion, a fun time to be had by all can be turned into a sour session. As a new player, this is something I will take away from this story. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe and leave a like. It's free to do, and you can change your mind later. If you have any thoughts on this story or feedback on how it can improve, feel free to leave a comment. Again, thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you all next time.